Should we invest in Rob Liefeld? That is the question of today's video. Back in December of 2020, it was announced that Archie Comics had struck a deal with Rob Liefeld to revive a long dormant team called the Mighty Crusaders. And if you've never heard of the Crusaders, that's okay, because we are going to give you a rundown over the course of this video. And if you haven't yet listened to one of my previous recordings, I want to welcome you to the channel and definitely encourage you to hit the subscribe button. That way you don't miss out on any of the content like this one that gets released on a weekly basis. The Mighty Crusaders originally debuted in 1965, having been created by Superman co-creator and writer Jerry Siegel. And it appears that Archie will be using this four-part Rob Liefeld-led Mighty Crusaders series to jumpstart their return to superhero comics. A written release from Archie Comics states that the Mighty Crusaders will serve as an important, vital first step towards reintroducing Archie's essential superhero IP to a modern readership and viewership. And in my mind, the last part of that statement is critical. Viewership. That is not an accidental word that they chose to put in there. That word, in my mind, is purposeful. It appears that Archie Comics is taking note of the success that Marvel and DC are having with movies and TV shows, and they want in on the action. It is undeniable that both Marvel and DC are having some success. And I think there are varying degrees of success that they are having, but they are having some success. And Marvel, for its part, has, brought in $22 billion or something crazy like that. And again, Archie is looking at this and they're saying, we want some of that magic. But the truth is, Archie isn't necessarily a stranger to TV. They have adapted several of their properties, but they've never done anything similar to what Marvel has done with the MCU, but you never know. In the written release, Archie states that their untapped superhero library is ripe for adaptation. Again, they are putting it all out there. They are basically saying, look, we are going to come back to print comics, but we have our eyes on the prize of either movies and or TV shows, so we are going to make it happen. According to The Hollywood Reporter, the Rob Liefeld Archie Comics deal actually took some time to be hammered out. And I don't think that anyone is surprised by that after all of the various deals that Rob Liefeld has had with different media outlets over the decades. There's no surprise that it actually took some time, but the deal is complete. And the question remains if we should invest in Archie's superhero universe. That is the question at hand. As mentioned, Rob will be working on a title called The Mighty Crusaders, and this team has had several different lineups over the decades, but typically includes heroes like the Shield, Comet, Jaguar, Flyman, and or Fly Girl. Not to be confused with the Fly Girls from In Living Color back in the 90s. Not to be confused with that at all. But like the Avengers, the Mighty Crusaders team has been assembled from a cast of characters that have been previously introduced. A few of the characters were pulled from the 30s and 40s, with others coming from the 50s and 60s. And as you would imagine, these characters have been morphed and tweaked over the decades as the intellectual property has been owned or licensed by several different publishers, including DC Comics. The Shield and the Comet, for example, were first introduced in Pep Comics issue number 1 from 1939. And it should be mentioned here that the Shield is technically the first patriotic hero predating Captain America. The Jaguar first appeared in Adventures of the Jaguar issue number 1 in September of 1961. The Fly, later dubbed Flyman, was created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby and first appeared and The Double Life of Private Strong, issue number 1 from June of 1959. Fly Girl later appeared in The Adventures of the Fly, issue number 13 from July of 1961. Despite this rich history and some individual success, the Mighty Crusaders itself never really caught on. The team, first debuted in 1965, has been rebooted in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s under various names, featuring different lineups and having different publishers. With that said, Rob Liefeld is no stranger to giving life to tired characters. He has an amazing fan base that absolutely loves his work and a social media platform that will allow him to drive excitement and demand for his Crusaders series, which is set to be released in 2021. When combined with Archie Comics' desire to leverage its long dormant intellectual property and to adapt it for movies and TV, this could be worth something keeping an eye on. I, for one, will tell you that I have picked up some of these books in the background because I am a fan of something that I call the Blue Ocean Strategy. And technically, I did not invent this idea, but I did take the concept from the business world and apply it to comics. And the general idea here is that you want to think about your wants, your needs, your interests. You want to think about trends that you are actually seeing in the marketplace, and you want to ask yourself some questions. What can you do to actually get ahead of the curve? What books do you have an interest in that you can actually pick up at a lower price before everyone else starts to pay attention to them? It is like the anti-FOMO type of strategy for comic book collecting and investing. And so there are definitely videos that are here on the channel that you can check out that will go into a lot more detail than the little snippet that I just provided there. With that said, I am going to wrap this video up. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. And if you enjoyed this video, I definitely want to encourage you to hit the thumbs up button. And please leave a comment behind. Let me know what you think about what Rob Liefeld is trying to do, what you think Archie is trying to do, and whether you think that these efforts are going to be successful. As always, you can reach out to me on social media, specifically on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.